Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we are going to explore a central question in economics and business strategy. If markets are very efficient, and then why do governments intervene? Because in general, we understand that free markets are often efficient. They are often praised for allocating scarce resources at a lowest cost, and especially when supply and demand interacts freely in a market, it maximizes social welfare by maximizing producer surplus and consumer surplus. But the thing is that the markets are, though we say markets are efficient in this way, but not always. There are exceptions. So there are important exceptions. That means the markets can often fail when action create cause for others, like pollutions, and or there will be shortage of essential. Just because of the free play of market forces, there may be shortage of essentials like essential medicines, housings, and other necessities of life. Then it raises concerns of fairness and equity. So these are the cases of externalities and equity failures in a free market where government interventions become necessary. So in this session, we will look at policy tools like price controls, taxes, and subsidies, and the logic behind these interventions, and then their intended and unintended impacts. So understanding this is essential, not just for the policy sake, but also to understand the business context and develop business strategy. So firms must adapt to environments shaped by government action. So let's begin with a key question. When do markets fail? How can government respond effectively? That is the main question that we are going to answer here. So just look at the free markets case here. So you can just see in the diagram here, what I'm showing here is that the demand curve that is sloping downward from left to right, and the supply curve. And then you can see here is that this is the equilibrium point where demand intersects with the supply, and the quantity demanded and produced is this level OQ. This much is the total quantity demanded and supplied, and the price is at this point, that the price is OP. P is the price, right? So this is a competitive market. When the competitive market is said to be efficient, they maximize the consumer surplus, this area, and the producer surplus. Then they produce the optimum output of Q here. So in this case, when producers and consumers are at equilibrium, the marginal cost is in terms of the supply curve, and the marginal benefit, that's in terms of the demand curve, it becomes equal. Right, so there is no grievance. Consumer surplus and producer surplus are maximized. So just now I introduced you a concept called consumer surplus and also producer surplus. So let's get to know what is this concept all about. So let's start understanding, defining this concept, and then how to measure consumer surplus and producer surplus using the demand and supply framework. So here I'm again showing you the market equilibrium position here. The supply curve is given here, the demand curve is given here, and you know that when the price is here, B is the price, at B this is the price level, price here, and the total consumer expenditure is the price times this total quantity. So you can see this rectangle. This is the total consumer expenditure. So where does this consumer surplus comes? So I just marked here, this is the consumer surplus. So let us get the intuition behind it. Why we call the triangle just above the rectangle area, we call it as consumer surplus. So to get the idea here, let me take you to another diagram. So I'm just showing you only the demand curve here. Just look at some discrete point. For instance, for example, when the price is 5, the market quantity demanded is 1 unit. One, you can multiply it with a billion or trillion if you want. So when the price is, the quantity demanded is 1 unit. And when the price is below, price is 4.5, just look at another point, B, they are willing to buy 2 units. When the price drops further to C, they are willing to buy 3 units. So when you can keep on adding here E, F, G, like that. There's so many discrete points you can add here. Then instead of this discrete point, you can also mark, because sake of simplicity I didn't add each and every point, not necessary that between A and B there should be this much distance. So you can start with here small changes, the price, each and every small points that you can look at here. So that means when the price keep on declining, look at from here, when the price keep on declining, that quantity demanded gradually started increasing. So when due to the demand and supply forces, this is the supply. Finally, we see that this is the market price. Market price is 2.5 here. So market price is 2.5, but the issue here is that when the price was above, there are some they are willing to buy. For example, when the price was 5, they are willing to buy these many units. So, but right now they are paying, when the price is 5, they are willing to buy 1 unit. But because of the market equilibrium, the price is now 2.5. So they now demand 7 units. That means those who are buying this 1 unit, they are willing to pay 5, but actually they need to pay only 2.5 here. So that means the remaining these 2.5 they save. And similarly for those who are buying 2 units, just look at the market demand. So that means this, for example, when the price is 4.5, for them they buy 2 units, they get 2 units, but additional unit they get at this from 1 to here. Actually they are willing to pay here 4.5, but actually they are getting it at 2. Again they save 2 rupees here. So in that way, each and every point, if you keep on changing the price here, you can see that all this area, because finally the actual price, finally they are paying is only 2.5, but the quantity they are getting is but they are actually willing to pay more than this, but at a smaller unit. But when the market is finally cleared, market equilibrium, the quantity demanded is 7, quantity supplied is also equal to 7, then what you can see that all this area, you can say that this is the consumer surplus. Actually, there were consumers, they are willing to pay higher price, but for a smaller unit, like that, right? So this is the area, this triangle, we can say this is consumer surplus. How is it possible? Because the price was 5, somebody is willing to pay 5, but market is saying that okay, because of the demand and supply interaction, market price is 2.5, right? So for them, they get, everyone they get the quantity, because it's a homogeneous product that we are talking about. So everyone gets at the price of 2.5. So in this way, the difference between the maximum amount a person is willing to pay for a good and its current market price, that is what we call the consumer surplus here. So I hope this is clear to you. So simply this triangle shaded in the blue color, this is the total consumer surplus. And how to calculate this, you need to see what is the quantity here, and the price, the market price, and their maximum willingness to pay. And you can see you need to calculate triangle area, you need to calculate. So I'll give you a small example, some estimation, so that you can easily calculate this one. Suppose the price here is a maximum willingness to pay is 4.5 and the market price is 2.5, and the quantity demanded and supplied is 7. So the triangle area, you need to calculate the half part of it, that the 0.5 times what is the distance, that the maximum willingness to pay and the market price. That means this area, this one is 2, this distance is 2, and this one is 7. So finally you can calculate the consumer surplus as 0.5 times 2 multiple times 7 is equal to 7. So that is about the consumer surplus. Let's now move to related concept called producer surplus. So the producer surplus, we can define the same using the same framework. Here it is the difference between the amount a producer of a good receives and the minimum amount the producer is willing to accept for the good. So for example, look at here, I'm just marking here. So when the price is this one, P naught, they are willing to supply this much, right? When the price is, so when P naught, they are willing to supply this much. When the price is P00, this much, they are willing to supply this much. That means all the area, so that their minimum willingness to accept, PM is the minimum price they are willing to accept. So when the prices keep on increasing, they are willing to supply more and more, right? That's how we define the law of supply. That means that when the price increases, they are willing to supply more. So all the area above the supply curve, but below the market price, you can see that they are actually willing to supply. But what they're happening that because of the demand and supply equilibrium, the market price is P1. Even the quantity they are selling Q naught, they are getting price P1, this P1. Even for Q double naught, for that also they are getting this P1. But they are actually willing to supply this product at a lower price. So they are willing to accept a lower price for Q naught and Q double naught. So similarly here you can add here more, and here also you can add. So what you can see finally that because of the free play of demand and supply, the market value, the price is determined at P1 and quantity demanded and supplied is Q1. And here what we can see that this much is the producer surplus also generated. So in this case, because of the free play of market forces, producers also benefit, because that is the difference between the market price and the amount the producer is willing to accept for that good. That is called producer surplus. I'm just giving you some example just to calculate consumer surplus and producer surplus. Suppose the demand equation is this one, that the QD is equal to 600 minus 50P. So compute the consumer surplus when the market price is 4. So we get the consumer surplus 1600. How to do that? Because first you recall what is the definition. Definition is the difference between consumers' willingness to pay and the actual price they paid. So there are different steps are involved, because the equation that we are given is the demand equation. So you need to calculate the willingness to pay from here. So in order to identify the maximum willingness to pay, translate the demand function into an inverse demand equation. So because S plus price P as a function of quantity demanded QD. So then you are going to get, when you translate demand function into an inverse demand equation, you are going to get P is equal to 12 minus 0.02 quantity demanded. That means when you draw this one, it becomes like this. Here the maximum willingness to pay is 12, and the market price we already saw that one is 4 here, right? So that means in order to get the market price, the supply curve should go through this, right? So slope is 0.02 here. So then if you plug all this value, when the market price is 4, the quantity demanded is 400, because you just plug this value here. And the quantity demanded that you are going to get is 400. Therefore, the consumer surplus is this area, that the 0.5 times 8 times 400. That means exactly this area. This is the distance is 8, and this distance is 400. And then the triangle, you know that you need to multiply with 0.5. So similarly, you can estimate the producer surplus as well. And I have listed out all the steps. You can follow this one. And in this equation, and you are going to get the producer surplus is 800. So this is what we studied. That means we're going to establish just now. If we allow free market forces, is going to maximize the consumer surplus and the producer surplus. That means these are the two agents here, two stakeholders in this framework. There is no government for the time being. Then what happened that there are some concerns take place here, because if we leave everything to the free market, is on one way we can say that it's efficient because it's produce optimum output, and consumers, because there is consumer surplus is maximized, producer surplus is maximized, and at the optimum output, in general we say that producers and as consumers are happy, they are at equilibrium. So what happened that in the real world, if we leave the markets uncontrolled, then sometimes the price of certain goods, for example, necessities like essential medicine, would be too high. Similarly, about the housing for the poor people, it will be too high. Some people cannot afford. In that context, government need to enter the market, and instead of completely leaving into the market forces, demand and supply, government needs to fix the price. So then using the demand and supply framework, and again using the consumer surplus and producer surplus idea, we are going to see what would happen to the market equilibrium when government intervene. So there are two concepts that we are going to introduce here. One is called price ceiling and the related one is price floor. So let's discuss it one by one. Starting with price ceiling, it looks like graphical representation looks like this. So price ceiling means the ceiling, that means a maximum price that sellers can charge for a good, usually set by government. It's not set by the market forces. Market will be determining, but after that government intervene, then government set the maximum price that sellers can charge for a good. So why? To protect consumers from situations in which they are unable to afford needed commodities. So example is housing and essential medicine. So suppose here, just look at this diagram here. If you leave everything to the free market, demand and supply, this is the price. Price is 1.5 and the optimum output that we determined is this one, right? For example, just give Q naught. This is the optimum output. Then the thing is that for some, suppose this is the housing market, and you just see 1.5, you just multiplied with million, for example, million rupees. So 1.5 million. For maybe it will not, maybe actually for many poor people, they cannot afford 1.5 for buying a house. So in this case, what government say that though market price is 1.5, government fix, for example, the price is 0.57 million. So instead of 1.5, government intervene in the market and set the price as 0.57 million. And what government would say here is that they tell the seller that you cannot charge price above this. They cannot charge 0.58 or 0.1 or 1.5 million. They can charge only 0.57 or even below. So that is the maximum price sellers can charge for a good. So in this case, now you look at the demand and supply point. So when the price is 0.57 is the below the market price, suppliers are willing to now supply only this much, right? But the consumers, when the price is 0.57 million, they are now willing to demand this much. So that means this is deficiency of excess demand. Excess demand is this much. This area is excess demand. But the point is that since government has put a maximum ceiling, that is 0.57, only this much quantity will be produced and transacted, because in order to supply beyond this, the sellers need to get a higher price, right? But since the price is 0.57, they will be supplying only this quantity supplied. They will be supplying only this much. But then at this price, the poor people can afford this 0.57 to buy the housing. So in this case, there is excess demand. That is the unintended consequence. One way you can see that the benefit point is that the welfare point here is that since the actual price is 0.57 instead of 1.5, that is the one determined by the market. Now the current actual price is 0.57. Many people can afford. But the concern is that at this price, people they are willing to buy these many units, large amount of this quantity, but suppliers are not willing to supply. So this much is the excess demand or unproduced output, right? This much they are not willing to produce and supply in the market. That is one of the unintended negative impact. Then another concept is too closely related to price ceiling. Is completely opposite of price flooring. Here, price floor means a minimum price below which exchange is not permitted. For example, minimum wage. Suppose the market determined price is, for example, 500, and government say that the actual price, the wage should be given 600. Similarly, minimum support price for agriculture products. Suppose for 1 quintal of wheat, the market price is 500, and government is saying that no, it should be the demand is those who demand this one, they should be paying 600. That the producer should be getting 600, not the 500 that is determined by the demand and supply. And I think you are familiar with this concept that the minimum wage, government already, each state government, they fix minimum wage for different occupational category, and then similarly central government fix minimum support price. So normally they fix the minimum support price above the market price. Here you can see that minimum support price set by the market forces is 500, but the price flooring that the government fixed was 600. That means no transaction is allowed below 600. For example, when the minimum wage is 600, the employers need to pay 600, not the market determined 500. So in this case, let us now look. So when the price is high, obviously, the supply is very high. This is the supply now. Supply is this much. Suppose they are the labor supplier. So when the market wage is 600, they are now willing to supply this much. This much is their market supply. But the demand is the employers, since they need to pay 600 instead of the market determined price of 500, they are now willing to demand only this much. This is their demand, right? So here what you can see that there is excess supply. That means excess surplus of laborers. In the case of labor market, the quantity demanded is only this much. For example, 800 is this one, and this one is for example 1200 laborers. So here this much is excess surplus, that is surplus of supply. Surplus, that means 400. If you translate the contextualize it in the labor market, you can see that this is nothing but unemployment. So the good point here is that the welfare point is that the laborers are now getting higher wage, but at the same time the unintended negative impact is that some people are unemployed here. That means at this high wage, people are willing to, more number of people are willing to work, and they are willing to work overtime, but market demand is only 800 here, but market supply 1200. So there is this excess, this surplus is there, surplus is 400 units. So that much of unemployment is there. So that means the unintended effect is demand for labor decreases. So this is nothing but unemployment for laborers. So I'm just showing you a case study example. Does raising minimum wage increase unemployment? So this is a 2011 study by William Ewan and David McPherson. They looked at nearly a large number of observations from 1994 to 2010. But the basic economic theory says that, the framework that we used just now, it says that if the minimum wage is higher than the equilibrium wage, there will be a surplus of labor. And we commonly refer to that as unemployment. So that means theoretically, if government is setting minimum wage, which will be above the equilibrium wage, theoretically is leading to unemployment. So the main findings they found that is not that the unemployment is spread for equally spread among the all population group. There actually a 10% increase in the minimum wage decrease employment by 2.5% for white males, 1.2% for Hispanic male, and 6.5% for black males. So that means government intervention is justified, however, but for wrong reason. The wrong reason here is that their objective was to increase the income of laborers. So in that way, definitely those who are employed, they will be getting higher wage. But at the same time, it leaves many people unemployed, and the unemployed will be mainly from the vulnerable population group, socio-economically backward population group. But the advantage which I mentioned here is that is actually increasing the income of those laborers, those who got employment, their wage has been increased, and for them their ability to pay has increased. What we can see that looking at in terms of them actually, because now their income has increased, their purchasing power has increased, now they can afford and buy more goods and services, even they can buy more nutritious food that will improve their standard of living, and they can also afford for more other goods and services, those who are employed. But at the same time, we need to see that because of this policy, so many people become unemployed, and for them, that's another concern. Maybe in that context, government can come up with another policy, unemployment allowance, for example. The government can give unemployment allowance, social security measures for those unemployed people. So overall, there are some development approaches and justification of level of government intervention. One development approach is for improving the standard of living. That one, because if we completely leave everything to the market forces, we see that sometimes many people cannot afford that. Many people cannot afford market prices. So in this case, what the development approaches say that, and the growth strategy, suppose if you follow a trickle-down approach means a supply-side economics feature favoring wealthy individuals and large corporations in general. So what it says that tax breaks and benefits for corporations, and the wealthy will eventually benefit everyone. So that means if the economy is growing, it will generate more employment opportunities for everyone. Many people will get employed. So that means benefit. If you give more benefits to corporation and wealthy individual, they will invest more, and they will invest in more productions of goods and services, and it will give more employment opportunities, and it will then eventually gradually trickles down from the rich to the poor. That is one. And second one is called redistribution strategy. That means bottom-up approach. That means take money from, impose more tax on the rich, and then use this money to and redistribute this money to the lower income groups in the form of social welfare policies. And another strategy is a mix of both. On the one side, there should be growth, the strategy which we mentioned, growth strategy. And in parallel, there also should be plus that the redistribution strategy as well. So that means is a mix of both approaches. So the extreme regime is actually, we already seen capitalism. That means is completely leaving to the free market forces, and socialism means completely under the government control. So the middle path, mainly the liberal democratic capitalism, and these days, and also market capitalism, socialism, and mixed economy, all these, they follow a middle path of both the strategy. That means a growth plus redistribution strategy. This has been widely used these days. Thank you very much for listening. See you in the next session. Thank you.